Okay.
All right. Greetings, everyone. Nickie Brown here, or Shalethia Nicole, as some may know me by. I am here today with Tim Stewart, Talk Man Talk, and we are going to discuss the current state of relationships today. How you doing today, Tim?
Doing quite well. Doing quite well, Nikki. Thank you so much for having me on your show. Look at that smile. I love it.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to kind of introduce you a little bit. You do have your own platform. It's
Mhm.
called Talk Man Talk. And would you say the main focus is your 12 principles?
It is.
Or,
Yeah. Well, Talk Man Talk speaks to inspire, motivate, and educate people from every walk, focusing on 12 spiritual principles to freedom from active addictions and inner peace, and also for common unity in our community.
oh, that's great. So,
Yeah.
would you say that that's your focus for your coaching business? Because you're also a life coach, right?
I'm a coach. I'm a speaker, a coach, and a trainer. So, I use these same 12 principles in each of the areas that I focus on: speaking, um, coaching, and even the distribution of the 12 principles for schools and communities for common unity in those communities, especially in the education sector. We unfortunately, we just heard about a shooting down in Tennessee where some kids were killed, and it's very unfortunate. And that that's that's one of the things that makes your work so important. Talking about relationships, and I'm really excited about getting into our conversation tonight. It's very much needed. We can't ignore the elephant in the room. We have to, look at these situations and come up with a proactive approach, not reactive. The damage is done then.
Absolutely. And that was a very tragic situation that took place. So, in in your mind, are you basically saying that if people had better relationships, they wouldn't get into situations like that?
Absolutely. And the most important relationship, Nikki, is the relationship with ourselves. That's why the title of my book, I'm also an author, of course. The title of my book is Free Yourself from Yourself. The most powerful government on this planet is not democracy or the Republican Party or a dictatorship. The most powerful government on this planet is self-government. That's why I promote these 12 principles of honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, discipline, forgiveness, acceptance, and awareness, gratitude. So anytime a person governs themselves, we don't need policing.
Absolutely, I agree. I absolutely agree. Okay, so you pretty much just told us all the 12 principles. Um, is there any one that you focus on more so than another, or do they kind of have all have equal weight in terms of how someone should govern themselves?
They all have equal weight in their respective scenarios or situations. But if there's one this we say that honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, being open, those three are indispensable. You got to be honest, right? And we say we practice these principles, Nikki. That nobody has them perfect. Nobody does them perfect on every day, but uh, we practice them in every area of our lives. Now, one thing about these principles that I love about them, and I can stand on the White House in Washington D.C. on the steps of the White House and proclaim these because a principle is a law. A principle is a law, a foundational law that governs our behavior. The actual definition of a principle is a fundamental law that guides our decision making process, empowering us to live a lifestyle of integrity and morality. That would be the definition. Now, what's so unique about a principle is it is inherent in creation. That means it's built in creation. It was here when we got here. Number one. Number two, it is um, impartial. It's impartial. Doesn't matter who practice these principles, male, female, black, white, green, red. Number three is it's not geographical or demographical restricted. These principles will work in LA, New York, and Japan, right? And here's the last one. These principles are permanent. They will always be here. They are valid. Listen to this, Nickie. They are valid in every room. The boardroom, the locker room, the living room, the classroom, even the bedroom, right? These
Wow.
principles, yeah. And so here's what happens. Here's why this is so important, and your work is so important. An individual who commits to practicing these principles in their lives, self-govern themselves, meet someone else who is practicing these principles in their life, self-govern. These two come together. These two people develop a relationship that's founded on these principles. That
Mhm.
relationship turns into a marriage. Now you have a marriage functioning by these principles. That marriage produces a family. Now this family is operating. These are the guiding principles for this family. Now these families create communities. Now you have a whole community founded on these guiding principles. These principles are a solution for the decay in our society today. Absolutely. I, you know, I'm 100% confident in that. And how I know, Nickie, is because I use these principles. These principles are the principles that saved my life. They took me from being homeless, hopeless, and penniless to an acceptable, responsible, productive member of society. These 12 principles.
Wow, that's great. Um, so would you say that these principles are spiritual or religious, or um, not necessarily?
They're not religious. Uh,
Okay.
these principles are, these are spiritual, right? Which means uh, man didn't introduce these principles. These principles were discovered by man, but man didn't create them. Man
Okay.
didn't create honesty, right? He
Right.
discovered them.
Right. So did you kind of coach yourself to a higher place by using these principles? Because you said you battled, homelessness and some other issues that are kind of common in today's society and that many people deal with. So did you just do a lot of affirmations or positive self-talk, or
Well, uh,
what does that look like when you apply it to your life?
okay. So I was introduced to these principles through the 12-step program. Um, and I'll just give you a little backdrop. The 12-step program, the first one, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, was created by these two guys, Dr. Bob and Bill W. These two guys had a problem with alcohol. They were very successful men, but they had a problem with alcohol. And long story short, they created um, these steps. They were a part of an Oxford group, which is a Christian sect back in that day.
Mhm.
That's no longer around now. But they had their own Bible. And what they did was they pulled out these steps, these principles from that Bible, and they called them steps. Well, I went back to the original principles and called them what they were. They are
Okay.
principles, right? And so we go through these 12 principles. Now, how I coach it is we focus on one principle a month. Like we're coming up on April.
Okay.
April is the principle of courage, right? And so
Okay.
we unpack the definition of courage, and we send out communications each day, quotes, famous quotes on courage. And in my book, Free Yourself from Yourself, I have an exercise after each chapter, after each principle that I talk about um, how I use these principles to change my life. My
Okay.
book is kind of like a memoir, but it has a self-help component embedded in it. So the first part of the book is about my story. But then the second part of the book, I go through these 12 principles and I use pieces, excerpts from my memoir to show how this principle changed my life. And so we practice these principles, and coaching is so valuable. We don't I think we're realizing it more and more each generation how valuable it is to have a coach, especially when we have so many single parent homes, especially in our culture and in our communities. You know, uh, one person doesn't know it all. And so we were all created to be here and function interdependently, not independent. You know, you talked about the state of relationships, and we hear this concept or this philosophy that I'm independent. Well, that's a flawed philosophy. Nobody can live on this planet by themselves, Nickie. Nobody.
Right. That's very true. That's very, very true. So it's ironically the principles are not religious, but they kind of come from the Bible.
Right.
And I like that you've shown a way to apply them in your book. So basically, people need to buy your book in order to learn more about these principles and go into further detail. And your book is called Free Yourself from Yourself. Is it available on Amazon?
It is available on Amazon. You can go to my site, talkmantalk.com, and or you can just Google talkmantalk.com or Free Yourself from Yourself, and it comes up. But everything about pretty much about me and what I do is on my website. And you mentioned something that's very key, Nickie, is yes, they did come out of the Bible. I don't proclaim any religion, right? I graduated from that, and let me just put this disclaimer out there. I don't knock anybody who has made that choice, who practices religion. I do not, right? And here's why. Because I discovered that the Bible is not a religious book. It's taught that way, right? The message of Jesus Christ, there was only one message that Jesus Christ taught, and that's the kingdom message. Kingdom. In Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom, right, of God.
Right.
His first public recorded statement was in Matthew 4:17. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near, right? When he told his disciples to go out 2 by 2 in Matthew 10:7, he says, as you go, proclaim this message: the kingdom of heaven has come near. And then in Luke 4:43, he says, you ask people, why did Jesus come? Well, he tells us why he came. He says, but I must proclaim the good news of the kingdom to the other towns because that is why I was sent. That's what's written. Some people get upset with me because I promote what is actually written in the book. Now, this word kingdom is mentioned 162 times in the New Testament alone.
Wow. I never knew that.
Yeah, 162 times. And so when we look at this word kingdom, it's a word construct. King, dominion, kingdom. It's a king's dominion over a territory.
Okay.
A kingdom is a country, and every country is regulated by government. These principles are government that we use. That was the original intent, for us to self-govern ourselves.
Right.
God didn't create no judges and courts and lawyers, and certainly no penitentiaries. God didn't do that.
Right.
Because that was never God's intent.
Right.
We were created to govern ourselves using the kingdom of God, which is self-government. In Isaiah 9:6, right? It says, unto us a son, a child is born, a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of people don't know or understand those scriptures. And so thank you for sharing, that and kind of tying it into your 12 principles, because it does all make sense.
That's it. Look, Nickie, that's it right there. It makes sense. I did stuff in my life over the years when I practiced these programs. I did it, but it didn't make sense. And so, and I see now, sometimes I ask people questions, they'll make these statements, and I say, well, how does that work? I'm not going to debate with you. I just asked you a question.
Well, people get defensive when they can't answer a question, and some people don't know how to communicate. So they think you're being argumentative when you challenge them because they don't know how to answer the question.
Well, the reason they don't know how to answer goes back to your point. It doesn't make sense.
It
That's
doesn't
why they
make
can't
sense.
answer.
Right. Right. That's very
And
true.
guess what? I have a friend of mine, one of my best friends. He said, if it don't make sense, it ain't true.
Not true. Right. If you have to question it, just like, the current state of relationships, if you have to question things in a relationship with someone, it's probably not the right relationship for you.
So let's get into that. Let's talk about the current
Okay.
state of relationships. Well,
Okay.
in our society today, the divorce rate's over 50%.
Right.
So why do you think that is?
Well, I think that in today's society, a lot of people get married for the wrong reasons.
Absolutely.
And they don't have the 12 principles. They
They
don't.
don't practice them. Yeah.
Right. They don't have any integrity. They don't have anything to stand on because, again, they're choosing based on big this or big that, whether it be a wallet or a body part. And they're trying to build a relationship, or they're meeting and right away they're becoming intimate with each other, and they're trying to build a relationship off the sexual connection when they don't even know each other.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, people don't have the same moral standards or values or sensibilities. And so less is required of a partner until you get into the relationship. But a lot of these things aren't communicated. Oh, my phone is overheating. Um, hold on.
Okay, sure.
I don't want it to cut off on me. Let me see. I may have to switch to my laptop. Let's see.
Okay.
But I don't have a fan or anything I could put on it. Hold on a second. Okay. Oops. I lost my light. Sorry about that.
That's
I
okay.
had to grab. I'm trying to cool the phone down.
Okay.
But yeah, basically people get into relationships for the wrong reasons, in my opinion.
Well,
And they
I
don't
agree.
have a solid foundation.
Well, I agree with it. I agree with what you said, but here's how I say it. Relationships fail because people don't understand the purpose of a relationship or
Well,
marriage.
yeah.
And anytime we don't understand the purpose of a thing, abuse is inevitable. You give a 16-year-old a car and you don't teach that 16-year-old what the purpose of that vehicle is and how to take care of it, he'll tear it all to pieces.
Yeah,
Won't change the oil. I mean, just they won't take care of it because they don't understand the purpose of this vehicle is to take them places that they need to go back and forth safely, right?
right.
So when we look at marriage, and here's what I we talk about the Bible. I use the Bible as a manual, right? I don't know, not so much the stories, but the principles written in the book, right? The stories, I use to maybe illustrate the point of the principle, which is what the Bible does. But when we look at this institution of marriage, what I see, Nickie, is a lot of people getting into this institution, something that they did not create, right? And saying, okay, this is how we're gonna do this. That's like saying, okay, I like premium grade A orange juice. I'm gonna put some of that in my car because I like it. The car should like it.
Right.
What's gonna happen to the car? It's not gonna run. And that's what
Right.
people do. They get into relationships and, well, I think we should do it like this. But wait a minute, hold up, player. You didn't create this institution called marriage. So how are you gonna make up the rules, right, to how it should
Right.
function? And so in that Bible, that manual, there are instructions on how to operate in this institution called marriage. Um, uh, and the current state of relationships today is very unfortunate. Here's why. Here's what's so diabolical about the state of relationships, Nickie, is our culture was designed to function in families. You look at every other culture except our culture, family is so important. The Jews, the Chinese, the Arabs, every other culture. We disconnected. We've lost, and that connection is getting further and further. And the further that connection moves away, the greater the decay in our society, in our communities. Because family, listen to me, family is the solution to 95% of the social issues in our community, in our society today. The psychological and emotional issues that plague our 95%. The family is the antidote.
That I'm glad you said that because that was actually one of my questions. So you pretty much kind of touched on it already. What's the goal of an ideal relationship? And so, from your perspective, it's family and having those close ties and relationships and connections that will again prevent you from going off the deep end and, shooting up a school or, bombing a train station or whatever it is um, that causes you to be disconnected, that
Yeah,
causes the person to be disconnected.
absolutely. And so when we look at this institution called marriage, because marriage should be the foundation, it is the foundation for family, right?
Right.
Back
Right.
back to the title of the show, the current state of relationships. So you know, I didn't know this. I've been married and been divorced. And divorce is a terrible thing. It's worse than death. Nickie, did you know divorce is worse than death?
Well, it's a kind of death. It's an ending.
Well, it is an ending, but here's why it's worse than death. When somebody passes away, we get dressed, we go to the church, we say out what we're going to say, we take them to the graveyard, and we bury them.
Hmm.
Well, when you get divorced, it's a death, but you keep seeing them at the grocery store, on social media, with somebody else. It's tormenting.
Right.
Divorce is worse than death. So let's talk about marriage. What is the purpose of marriage? We said most people don't know. So on your show, Nickie, on your show, let's talk about it. What is the purpose of marriage?
To build a life, to
To build a
build,
life?
right, to build an empire, whether it be, and that looks different for everybody because the empire could be having a house with a yard. You understand what I'm saying? Or an empire could be owning several businesses between the couple or together.
Hmm.
Um, but it should be to build, like you said, an established family. Well, I like to say relationships. So be it relationships with other friends, other people in the community, the other children in the community, without there being the jealousy or envy and animosity because this one drives this kind of car or lives in this kind of house or just got their house painted. It should just be focused on the couple, them building, if they want children or if they don't want children, and again interacting with their community, maybe providing some type of community service, um, you know or something that also helps others. It shouldn't just be necessarily about the couple because I think if a couple has a good relationship with those 12 principles, and they've really established themselves and they've become friends, whatever that looks like for this particular couple, then they can branch out without any fear, without um, any jealousy or any of those things. And there should be trust because they've built up. a solid foundation. Um, and that's my answer.
Okay. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. However, I call what you just shared benefits.
Okay.
And most people get married for the benefit. The benefit is different from the purpose.
Okay. Explain that to me.
Okay, I love that. So let me state the ideal picture. This is just what you said. The
Okay.
ideal picture is a man and a woman joining their talents, abilities, and resources together to
Right.
produce a unified power that brings maturity individually and collectively to both of them. And they serve as an instrument of encouragement and love to all those who cross their path. That's
Right.
what you just said.
That
Now,
is.
the purpose, that's a benefit.
Right. Okay.
So most marriages in America are based on a contract. You do this, I do this, you don't do that, I don't do that. That was never the original intent.
Right.
A contract is conditional.
Hmm.
The original intent of a marriage was to be founded. The foundation is the most important part of any building. More work goes into more time and money and energy goes into building and constructing the foundation of any building because it has to support the whole house, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
The foundation for marriage is called covenant. A
Right.
covenant is different from a contract.
Right.
A covenant is unconditional. A covenant is an agreement made between two or more parties to carry out the terms agreed upon for life,
Right.
right? So let me finish this thought. So
Hmm.
if we want to understand marriage, we got to understand this word covenant because that's what it's built on, right? And without
Hmm.
going into a long story, you know, covenants is how people, families used to deal with one another. So they would come together, they would have a lengthy conversation and discuss the terms of this covenant, and then they would have a sacrimony, a ceremony, and typically they would let kill an animal
Hmm.
and let the blood run in the middle of each 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 person because everybody came here with a gift. Talking about um, interdependency, right?
Hmm.
Just say farmers and warriors. There's a story in the Bible about how these farmers and warriors established a covenant. So these farmers, they could grow food, but they couldn't fight. These warriors could fight, but they couldn't grow food. So these warriors would kill off these farmers and take their food. So one particular group of farmers got with one particular group of warriors and they said, let's make a covenant. I think somebody from each family started dating or something, right? And they were warring. And they said, wait a minute, hold up. Let's make a covenant. So they sat down, discussed the terms of the agreement, and each family, they had a member walk in the middle of this blood. They'd take an animal, split him down the back, and let the blood run in the middle. You remember this? You remember blood brothers?
Hmm. Yes.
I have some blood brothers, some white blood brothers, right? We
Okay.
ain't doing that today. Ain't nobody
Right.
doing no blood brothers today, boy. No, sir. So here's what actually happens. And this is where we get the wedding ceremony from today. So the farmer says to the warrior, as long as I have breath in my body, I will grow food for you and your family. The warrior says to the farmer, as long as I have breath in my body, I will protect you and your family. That's where we get to death do us part in the
Hmm.
marriage ceremony today. Then they would exchange garments or rings or colors. Gangs are nothing new. They've been doing it's just a new word. So you would recognize that person. They may put on this certain color. They may put 3 earrings in their nose or 2 in their ear. So when you were in the marketplace, you would recognize who was connected to who. And you knew if you messed with one, you had to deal with all of them. We
Right.
still do that. We still do that in the marriage today, right? The
Right.
wedding band
Right.
says, hey, I'm in covenant with somebody. So the original purpose for marriage, Nickie, is to help eliminate weaknesses. Now, most people get married for the benefits, children, companionship, intimacy, love is a benefit, not the purpose. Um, financial, financial reasons, those are all benefits, but the purpose is to help eliminate weaknesses. So when two people get together, they need to discover, what are your weaknesses, not your strengths. What weakness can I help you overcome in your life? And what weakness can you help me overcome in my life? Because we all have them.
Right.
So when two people can have that conversation and discuss them based on these 12 principles, that marriage will work.
I love that. That kind of brings me to the question I was going to ask you, because I often tell people that marriage is a business, right? And
It absolutely is.
Some people get offended by that, and they think that marriage is about love. And so my question to you is, do you believe in the modern day version of marriage where you have to sign a marriage license? Or do you believe more so in people having commitment ceremonies and then maybe going to an attorney to draw up their agreement, and just live their lives based on the things they've agreed to do with each other?
Well, here's my thing. I'm gonna go here. You ready?
I'm ready.
Those pieces, because I've signed marriage license and went to divorce court. That does not make a marriage. Paperwork will never make a marriage.
Right.
Here's my belief, and here's what my philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Once two people become intimate, that is called consummation of that relationship. And two people who can commit to that, because I have friends, Nickie, who come from third world countries, they are told who they're going to marry.
Right.
They don't do none of that, right? They
Right.
don't even know, they're told arranged marriages. And the divorce rate is very minimal because they understand the purpose of their role in that institution. So whatever kind of paperwork they want to do, they can do that twice. But if they don't, but if they don't have the understanding of the purpose and the commitment and the understanding, in the Bible, it says in Proverbs 24:3, it says, through understanding. Matter of fact, I'm gonna pull it up because I don't want to misquote it.
Okay.
And this is the guideline to marriage. It says, by wisdom a house is built, and by understanding it is established. By knowledge the rooms are filled with precious and pleasant riches. Love ain't even in there.
Right.
Hugging and kissing ain't in there. None of that. Ain't no paperwork in there.
You're right. You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. So now, how would you define intimacy?
Into me.
Into me.
Into me. Intimacy is not sex. It can include sex, but intimate is, you can have intimate conversations. I have friendships that are intimate, right? But there's no sex involved, right?
Right.
I'm into them, they're into me. They want to see the best for me. I want to see the best for them, right?
Right. Right.
So they're intimate. But with a couple, it adds the physical part to it.
Okay.
Nothing complicated. The older I get, the simpler life becomes. It's the basic. I've practiced these 12 principles, and they allow me to be the number one, advisor on my job, right? Because I have this integrity within myself. I don't have to be governed. My manager doesn't have to worry about me. I govern myself.
I love it. So I'm going to kind of segue, since we're kind of on the topic, although we veered off a little bit. How important is sex in a relationship?
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about all relationships, Nikki, are needs based. All relationships, personal or professional.
Right.
If my job doesn't put my check in my bank, right, when they say they do not meet my need for me to be able to pay my bills, that relationship will end. I will be employed somewhere else. If I do not show up to work and I do not perform and I do not adhere to the guidelines of that employment, that relationship will end. So, understanding that all relationships are needs based, there's 5 basic needs of a man and a woman that are inherent. When I
Okay.
say inherent, I want to make sure we're on the same page. That means
Okay.
we come here with it. It's built
Uh-huh.
into us.
Right.
In me as the male model of the species called mankind, and you as the female model of the species called mankind.
Okay, I'm ready for him.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you, what would you think are the 5 basic needs of a man?
Um, Loyalty, respect, um, probably sex. Um, hmm.
We don't think about that
Trust?
much, do we? Huh?
No, maybe trust.
Okay. You
And
close.
and and like someone who's supportive and encouraging.
Very good. I mean, you stated them probably the best I've heard somebody state them that I've asked that question to. But I'm going to put them in order, right?
Okay.
These are
Okay.
the order, and this is through learning, studying. Because let me tell you something. You know, I went through a divorce. I spent 20 years of my life married, and to be honest with you, the second marriage, I've been married twice. The second marriage, it was probably the greatest time I've had in my life so far. We had a great marriage. It just ended, right? Because I didn't understand these things. We didn't understand some of these things that I now know. So I
Okay.
went back. I said, man, I wanted to find out what went wrong. Why? We made this commitment and now we're divorced and it hurt. It hurt like hell, right?
Wow. Okay.
And so I discovered this. I ran into a mentor, and my mentor helped me sort through some things. And I found these 5 basic needs. Now, a need is different from a want. A
Mm-hmm.
need is a need. A person
Right.
gonna get what they need, right?
Right.
So the 5 basic needs of a man, number 1, you said it, it's honor and respect. Most people think it's sex. That's number 2. But a man will leave a woman who has great sex for a woman who speaks to the king in him. You can do it, baby. Come on, baby. I'm with you, baby. You can do it, baby. Right? So, honor and respect, number 1.
Okay.
That's when a woman shows a man honor and respect, guess what that says to a man?
What does it say?
I love you.
Okay.
Number 2 is sexual fulfillment. That is a need. A lot of women say, I'm not, you ain't getting no sex here. If I was a woman, I wouldn't say that. I would say, boy, I got that fire. You can get it, but it's gonna cost you. You're gonna have to let me know that you about me for real. Right?
Right. Right.
Um, and so sexual fulfillment, that is a need for a man.
Okay.
A man should not never have to fight for what should come to him naturally.
Okay.
And it's happening in a lot of marriages. A lot of women, the statistics show 80% of Black women use sex to get a man to do something for them. That
Right.
is wrong, right?
Right.
Number 3 is an attractive mate. Not that she has to look like a prima donna all the time, but sometimes she can dress up. Baby, look what I put on for you. Now that, boy, look here, that makes a man stick his chest out, right? Number 4 is recreational companionship. So whatever that man is into, right?
Mhm.
Because remember, from a biblical perspective, the woman was created as a helpmate.
Mm.
The man was given the vision, the woman was given the role to help him complete that vision. right?
Right.
And so if he's into sports, sit on the couch sometime, watch it with him. Or if he shoots pool, when he comes in, hey baby, how did you shoot? You know, what happened? Right? Recreational number one cheerleader. His wife should be his number one cheerleader. And number 5 is domestic support. As a man was created to provide, protect, and guide. Now, I know how to wash clothes. I know how to vacuum floors. I know how to wash dishes, clean the back. I know how to do all of that. I don't want to do it.
But what if he doesn't want to do it either?
Well, then what we do is we create a plan where we work together to get it done. That doesn't mean I can't do it.
Okay.
But that's not inherent in me. That's not a need that I need to feed. Right?
Okay.
I can do it, but it's not a need. Right?
Okay.
So now let's talk about the woman. So let me go back. The 5 basic needs of a man: honor and respect, sexual fulfillment, attractive mate, recreational companion, and domestic support.
Okay. Okay.
Now let's talk about the woman.
All right.
What's the number 1 need of a woman, Nickie?
Protection.
Bingo. Ding, ding, ding. Security. Now that security could come in a lot of different ways. It could be protection. It could be provision. It could be, a lot. But security. I hear women say, I don't need no man. If you take your car to a mechanic and it's a man, you needed the man. If you go to the grocery store and a man is putting the fruits and the vegetables out, come on, let's stop with the spooky pooky, right? Let's get real, right? Ain't nobody got time for no foolishness, right? We live in a society that we can't create fake solutions for real problems.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So security is the number 1. That's inherent in a woman. Now, a lot of women can psych themselves up and say, hey, but naturally, that is the number 1 need of a woman. Number 2 is love and affection. Now that doesn't necessarily mean sex for a woman.
Right.
Love and affection can be flowers. It can be a phone call, or I love you, or something. That is a need for a woman. Number 3 is honesty. A woman can handle some stuff that most men don't think they can handle. Right. Because a woman is an incubator. She will take whatever man gives her and multiply it.
Right.
You give her some groceries, she'll make you a meal. You give her a house, she'll turn it into a home. You give her a seed, she'll give you a baby. You give her some problems, she'll give you hell. So whatever, she's an incubator, she'll multiply. But a woman can handle things that a lot of men don't think they can handle. But if it comes from the street or from somebody else, then that's a big problem. But if a man would humble himself, which is one of these principles right here, by the way, and say, baby, you know what? I fell. Now, some things are 0 tolerance, right? Unfaithfulness is 0 tolerance. But I'm talking about, I done went out and spent some money, baby, that I didn't need to spend. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Right? I just stayed out with the fellas, baby, and I've come home late. I'm sorry. Right? Right. Or, that kind of stuff. So,
but not honestly, if you can't say you're sorry and then keep doing it because you ain't really sorry.
Yeah, that's not repentance. Repentance is to change, right? Really. Number 4 is open communications. A woman needs to understand the vision. If we don't communicate the vision to her, she has nothing to work with.
Right.
She was created to be a helpmeet. So if you ain't working with nothing and you haven't communicated nothing to her, she can't help you with nothing. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing.
That's it's funny that you say that, because I often ask, okay, if the person that you are dating doesn't have any ambition, where is he leading you to? Because a lot of men talk about they want to be the leader, they're supposed to be the leader, but where are you leading us to?
Yeah, he needs to have his vision on paper, right? And I'm telling you, Nickie, some of these things I didn't know when I was married, man, because if I had the knowledge, see, it's by knowledge and understanding and wisdom that a house is built and its rooms are filled with treasure.
Right.
Not love, not
Right.
money, not no paperwork,
Right.
knowledge, understanding, and wisdom,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, and number 5 for the woman is
Mm-hmm.
family commitment. A woman
Okay.
wants to know that a man is committed to her and their family.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree.
So those are the 5 basic needs. And any two people, I don't care whether they do the paperwork this way or that way.
Okay.
If they come together and they commit to meeting those 5 basic needs in each other, now that doesn't mean that's all their needs. On top of that, each personality has different needs. Like
Right.
I'm a real affectionate guy. I need affection, right? That's not a want for me. So I'll ask a woman, are you naturally affectionate? If a woman says to me, I can be, that tells me she's not.
Yeah, but if you have that open and honest communication, then she may be willing to do those things for you, but you may have to accept the fact that it may not be all the time, or or every
Well,
time you want
here's what I've learned is that everybody is not the right fit,
them. Well,
right?
that's true. Right.
Everybody's not the right fit. And it doesn't mean there's something wrong with her or something wrong with me. We just may not be the right fit. And the
That's true.
reason I say natural is because they do it without thinking about it. It is I don't know, I think my mom ruined me like that. Right? I have that need for touch. I need that touch. And I need that all the time. And if it's not natural, a person can start out doing it, right? We had the conversation, they agree, okay, I'm gonna do this. But after a while, it will become work because it's not natural. And
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Well,
maybe
I guess
not.
it depends on the person. It depends
It
on the
does depends
person.
on the person.
We do all have a different love language.
Yes,
And one of the love languages is
personal
touch.
touch. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and the reason I say naturally, because we will do what we were created, what's inside of us naturally.
Right.
And so, um, you know, like if somebody says to me, and now I'm a real affectionate person, I'm not affectionate because my mate is affectionate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or depends on my mate. I'm affectionate, period.
Right.
That's who I am.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense. So you kind of touched again on a couple of the questions that I want to ask. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions at one time, which again, you pretty much discussed them. But what would you say is the number one thing you learned from your past relationships? That's the first question. And the second part to that question is, what would you do differently if you were in a relationship now?
What did I learn about my past relationship? Um, is what I just, let's see, what did I learn? One of the biggest things, because I did go back and look at the part that I played, Nickie, and I asked myself,
Right.
where did I go wrong? One of the biggest things that I learned is when I saw that there was a problem, I ignored it. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, I ignored it. And what I did was I started focusing on work. And I just, you know, one of the biggest issues was a disrespect. You know,
Okay.
she started talking to me crazy, right? And I'm a man. I'm a man's man, right? I'm a manly man. If my mate
Right.
and I are walking down the street and somebody comes up and pulls out a gun, I will step in front of that gun and take the bullet. I'm that kind of man, right? But you can't talk to me crazy. That ain't gonna work ever,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
so when it started happening, I ignored it. I didn't address it, and then it got out of hand. So
Okay.
that was one of the things. And a lot of people do this. They'll push things under the rug, and then guess what happens? It starts stinking up under that rug, right? And so, what I would do different is like what we're doing now. This kind of conversation. I'll have this kind of conversation with somebody who is going to that I'm considering as a potential mate. I don't really do the date thing. I make a decision because again, I'm different. Love for me is not based on a feeling.
Right.
Love for me is based on a decision. I decide to love.
Well, that's true. And like you said, a lot of marriages are, especially the people who don't live or who weren't born and raised in the United States, those are marriages are arranged and they
Yeah,
make an agreement to stay together and do what is needed for the benefit of, everyone
their
involved.
family, of the
Right,
family, right?
right,
It's not that they don't have problems. Every
right,
marriage is going to have situations and circumstances, but they have the commitment. That's the key.
right, right,
See, let
right.
me tell you something. A lot of women, they have taken advantage of the system in America.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
A man can get out here and work hard, right?
mm-hmm.
Build his career up, a doctor, build his practice up. And this woman says, you know what? I don't want to be with you no more. And take half of his stuff, or vice
Right,
versa,
right,
right?
right. Yeah.
That's it's acceptable. Women coach each other. Girl, leave him and
Mhm.
make sure you get his money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And see, you want me to tell you something real deep?
What?
You ready for this?
I'm ready. Go ahead.
People don't really understand that when you go and have a wedding in front of your friends and family, you are not actually, from a spiritual perspective,
Hmm.
you're not allowed to dissolve that marriage until you go back and call all them people back and get their okay.
Wow. I
These
never
people,
knew that.
yeah. So we violate that because,
Wow.
if you had to do that, think about it. If people had to go back, we instituted that rule, that principle that if you decide to get divorced, you got to call for another ceremony, have all the people that came to your wedding come back to that another ceremony so that you can announce to them that you're not getting a divorce. That was mandatory. The divorce rate would drop.
Yeah, because people would be too ashamed to do that.
That's
It's
right.
too ashamed and embarrassed, and a lot of people would feel like failures.
That's right. So they
Yeah.
guess what they would do? Baby, let's
They would
sit down and
stay at
work
the
this thing out.
Yeah,
Let's work this
that is
thing out.
so true. So that brings me to another question. And again, I'm going to ask a two-part question. Um, w- Now we discussed the divorce rate. We said it was 50%, but why do you think so many people are single? And what advice would you give to married couples and single people?
Well, I think that people, number one, there's a lot of different reasons, right? And we couldn't even name them all sitting here, but the
Okay.
biggest reason is people are afraid of commitment, right? This is what I've discovered. People are afraid of commitment, right? They
Do
don't
you
want to
think
get
that they don't think you think they're afraid of commitment because they um of what happened to them their childhood,
part of
or
that.
okay.
And then the second part is hurt. People will do
Okay.
more to avoid pain than to seek pleasure.
Okay. Okay.
So to avoid any kind of chance or risk of me getting hurt, I'll play single. Which a lot of women, or let me say men and women, who proclaim
Mhm.
that they're single or not, they're having relationships with other people.
They're
Yeah,
having sexual relationships with other people.
yeah.
Yeah.
It could be financial, it could be sexual, it could
Well,
be,
that's true. That's
yeah.
true.
And so they're having relationships with other people, so they're not really single. So they're
Yeah.
not being honest, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
The other thing is, we live in a society today that people are not who they say they are. They
Right.
are different at 2 o'clock in the morning than they are at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And they can disguise it so well, right? And so a part of that fear is like, is this person real? Are they
Mhm.
really real? That's why I was talking in the barbershop a week or so ago. That's why we like superheroes, because they can be two people.
Right.
So it's okay for me to be two people. Batman, you know, he was Bruce Wayne, and you know, Superman was whatever his name was, right?
Clark Kent.
Clark Kent. So you know, and they were cool. They were okay. So it's okay for me to be two people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what makes superheroes. One of the reasons that makes superheroes really attractive. So that's to your answer. I mean, to your question. I think that's a big part of it. You know, we live. You know, Nickie, people be on social media. That ain't who they are. That's
Right.
not. That's not
Right.
who they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. You're right. You're right. And you know what, too, another thing that I realized, a lot of people, they have addictions. They, they drink, they pop pills or whatever it is, and then they get on social media just to harass people, and they think it's fun or funny. Or because then their relationship is not going so well, so they just
Right.
want to connect with someone else, and they're not really taking it serious. So there's a lot that goes on social media, but it's because people are unhappy with themselves. They're not loving themselves, and they don't have and although relationships are not about love, that self-love component is very, very important. If you don't love yourself, you can't be happy with yourself, and so of course you can't show up as yourself in a relationship because you don't even know who you are.
That's it. That's why they don't love themselves. Is because they don't know who. Most of the people that I work with, I'm talking from age from 15 to 60.
Right.
They don't know who they are. See,
Right.
that's why the title of my book is Free Yourself from Yourself. See, once I freed myself from myself, then I had the chance to discover who I was, discover my purpose. See, everything, including you and I, Nickie, comes to this planet with a gift trapped
Right.
inside. Everything.
Right.
Now, let me give you the definition of gift so we're on the same page. Because one of the most important components of effective communication is correct concepts. If you and I are having a conversation and you have a concept that's different than my concept, then guess what we'll have? A misconception.
Conflict. Yeah.
And a misconception leads to conflict. Right.
Right.
So a gift, it is the inherent capacity to fulfill a function that meets a need in creation.
I
Everything
like that.
comes to this planet with a gift trapped inside of it. Your gift is not for you.
Right. It's to share. Once you discover your gift, you're supposed to give it away and share it with other people.
And that becomes your purpose. Once a
Right.
person discovers that,
Right.
then guess what? Now they have a sense of significance. It's our
Right.
source of value. And now
Right.
we won't want to destroy it. Because if
Right.
I give you a plastic ring out of a Cracker Jack box and a 10-carat ring out of a jewelry store, you're going to handle them different because you understand the value of that 10-carat ring.
Right. Right.
So that's
Right.
my approach to people who, are dealing with the dilemma of active addiction is everybody knows using drugs ain't good. We know that, right? So
Right.
why I'm going to tell somebody, you shouldn't be using drugs? No, let's discover your gift. Let's free yourself from yourself. It's kind of like moving the weeds out of the way. And now I can see who I am.
So let me ask you about that. So your book, Free Yourself from Yourself, would you say that's more about ego, or is it more about people who are dishonest with themselves and hiding behind an addiction because they don't know who they are and how to show up in this realm of existence?
Well, it's not ego. It's
No.
more of about
Okay.
it's more of about, in my story, I was taught some habits that weren't the most healthiest habits, right?
Okay.
I learned some behaviors that didn't serve me well, right?
Okay.
I grew up in an environment that was somewhat dysfunctional.
Okay.
So that's called culture. Culture means to grow. So
Right.
when a child, it's like they say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, if the village is infected, how can the child come out uninfected?
Right. Now let me ask you a question about that. Um, Trying to maybe gauge your level of spirituality. Do you
Okay.
believe in past life karma? So do you believe that we are bringing some of the things that happened to us in a past life into this life and we still need to resolve those issues? Or do you think that it's just the here and now? This is what we learned in the past as a child or teenager, young adult, and now we're learning from those experiences.
Spirituality is right now, right?
Okay.
I don't really focus on stuff that I can't that's not evidence based,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
All I can focus on is right now, and that may be true. I don't know, right?
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't focus on it. I just
Right.
focus on right now. You know, it's kind of like this: when you drive your car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where's your focus?
In front of you.
In front of you.
Right.
Now you reflect in the rear view mirror from time to time or the side mirror, but your primary focus is what's right ahead, and that's kind of what I do. That's one of the things that and again, not judging anybody who practices the program of religion. That's why it didn't work for me, because I didn't find the evidence that I needed to confirm within
Right.
myself, you know,
Right.
that this was valid for me.
Right.
Because I
Uh,
grew up, I practiced Christianity for 30 years of my life.
Okay.
And let me tell you something, it was hard. It was
Right.
hard to break away from what I had been taught, but the evidence was so overwhelming.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
I'm homeless. I'm hopeless. I'm penniless at 40 years old. Something is
Yeah.
wrong.
Something is wrong. Right. Right. And then you have to gauge, okay, is something wrong with me or is something, wrong with society or, what is going on? What I often ask myself, because I was homeless for a little while too, what lesson do I need to learn from this? And I'm sure that, we're only given what we can handle. And some people would completely break down instead of opening up and discovering who you really are and why you're here, what your purpose is, and who you're supposed to help. Because you seems like you've pretty much found your target audience and the people that you feel that you should help. And you did mention that some of the experiences you had growing up didn't necessarily serve you,
Right.
um, and but you identified those things and you said, okay, how can I grow from this? How can I do better? What did I do wrong? And a lot of people don't do that. Again, they continue to be dishonest with themselves. So of course, if they're dishonest with themselves because they don't want to take accountability and responsibility for the things that they may have done wrong in a relationship, of course they're just gonna continue to blame. She did this to me, he did that to
That's right.
me.
That's
um
right.
and not acknowledge that it was an experience and it was a lesson that we needed to learn from. And so what did I learn from that lesson? And a lot of people don't know how to do that. um, so I want to ask about forgiveness since we're kind of on that topic. um, would you say that you've forgiven yourself and you've forgiven the relationships you've had in the past, whether it be familial, romantic, platonic, co-workers? Where are you in terms of your life coaching journey? Because you seem like you've coached yourself, so what have you learned from your coaching journey in terms of forgiveness?
Forgiveness was probably one of the hardest principles for me, because I had to learn how to forgive myself. I had
Okay.
to make a commitment, because I did some things, man. I embarrassed my family. I stole from my family. My daughters, the degradation and the dereliction of the lifestyle, from the lifestyle I was living, it was unbearable. And actually it kept me in that trap, because I would do something today that, because I'm getting loaded, right?
Hmm.
That I know is wrong.
Right.
And then tomorrow when I get up, if I ever go to sleep, right?
Right.
Now I'm feeling the pain from what I did yesterday. Now I've got to medicate that because I don't want to feel that, and I'm in this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
But now I get clean and sober. I take the medication, the drugs away. Now I have to deal with these feelings with no medication. And what I had to do was I had to accept acceptance. See, a lot of these principles are like a waltz, like 1, 2, 3. You put 1, 2, and 3 together, or 3, 4, and 5 together, right? So I had to get some acceptance to had to get honest, get to some acceptance to get to forgiveness.
Okay.
And so then, my dad, man, I'm gonna tell you something. I didn't have this close relationship with my dad growing up, right? And, of course, I didn't really understand this when I was growing up. He didn't have his dad in his life. Now, he taught me, he gave me what he knew. Sorry about that. He gave me what he knew, and that was how to work. Now, he was the workingest man I've ever seen. And he was a family man, right? He loved family, right? I mean, he did. And, I developed a resentment against him, right? As I got older and I got into this program, this process of recovery and practicing these principles and doing some work, doing a thorough and fearless moral inventory. Have you ever done a moral inventory? Yeah, a moral inventory. And what I learned and what I came up with, Nickie, is that my dad gave me the best he could give me.
Right.
And those resentments turned into respect, right? And I went to, And when I went to his funeral, they asked me to speak, and Nickie, I lost it.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I was ready. Look, I had put together this speech, man, and I was going to drop it like it was hot because there was a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a lot of years. So I wanted to share some knowledge with them. Man, I got up there, man, and I lost it. I couldn't get it out.
Wow.
And it's because, I had done that work, and that forgiveness was there, and that respect was there. And, the love that I had for my dad, I was hurt. It hurt me. And I beat myself up. For the next 3 days, I beat myself up, right? And it's like, man, I lost it because I typically manage my emotions. I don't allow my emotions to manage me, right? It's intellect over emotions, right? Which one's running the show, right? A lot of people leave the driving up to their emotions and bring their intellect along for the ride. And so how I got okay with that was one morning I woke up and it was just like in my spirit was like, you know what? Let it go. Forgive yourself. It just wasn't time for you to release that message yet.
Okay.
And I let it go.
And you let it go.
So I forgave myself because I've been practicing these principles, right? Practicing these principles doesn't mean that we don't get hit with situations and circumstances, but we have tools. These 12 principles are tools that we can use to overcome. These 12 principles will help overcome almost any situation. Now, when we talk about a medical or mental, disability or something like that, that's something different. But psychologically, morally, bingo.
Okay. I love it. You have some good stuff going on.
Yeah, you think so?
I think so. It seems like you've learned a lot from your past, which again, I feel that we're supposed to do. And I love the story that you shared, about your dad, where you felt this confidence, but then once it really came down to that moment, you became vulnerable.
Yeah.
Not too many men talk about, being vulnerable and, being able to open up and share And a lot of people don't forgive, whether male or female. Especially,
Yeah.
a lot of people um, do hold grudges against their parents or have animosity against their parents, because they feel like their parents didn't meet their love language. But like you said, a lot of times our parents give us what they can, what they have. And
Yeah.
if it's a good work ethic, then that's what they have, because no one gave them, you know, the touch or the
Yeah.
words of affirmation, those love languages. No one did that for them. So
My
they're like,
dad
oh,
never
well,
said
I'm
I
gonna
love
make
you. Yeah,
right.
my
But
dad.
he
Yeah,
made
my
sure
dad never said.
he made sure you have food, a roof over your head. And that for
Absolutely.
him, that was love. That was his
That
way of
exactly.
showing love.
Absolutely.
Okay. I love that you've had a lot of growth, and that you're able to share that growth with your clients, as do I. You know, and sometimes we have to redirect people because, like you said, a lot of people don't know who they are, and they're still trying to figure that out. Um, and it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do if you don't, what you call, do a moral assessment.
That's right. Well, kind of the process that I found of discovering my purpose is, what am I naturally good at? Michael Jordan was naturally good at basketball, right?
Right.
It-
Right.
it- there's very few people on the planet that could do, if any, what Michael Jordan did on the basketball court. Very few. And he discovered that gift, and that fueled his purpose, right? He, I mean, he gave us a very vivid scenario, right? So
Mm-hmm.
he's won a champion, he's won a couple rings in basketball. He says, you know what, I'm gonna retire from basketball. I'm gonna go play baseball. He went and
Right.
played baseball. Do you know what happened?
He came back.
He sucked over there. He couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't his thing.
Right.
He was Tiger Woods, golf. Serena Williams, tennis. Um, Tom Brady, football. You know, here's the process. Here's what I learned, Nickie. Everything was created for a purpose,
Mm-hmm.
packed with potential to function by principle. Everything was created for a purpose, packed
Mm-hmm.
with potential, which is the gift,
Right.
to function by principles. Now, these principles protect the potential and safeguard the purpose,
Wow.
because we see people who discover their gift, right? They serve it to the world, and because they don't practice these principles, their gifts destroy them. Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, Elvis Presley. We see our gift will actually destroy us without the principles.
Wow. Okay, so I'm not sure if we touched on it, but I did ask what advice, because we're going back to the current state of relationship. So what advice would you give to married couples? And I love the way you kind of explain that basically we all should have a purpose. And so if we're being dishonest with ourselves and we don't know who we are, um, how can we fix it? How can we change? And some people don't want to change, and I get that.
Right. But for the
But
people that do want to change.
for the people who do want to change, and let's start with married couples, and then we can go to single people. For the people who do want to change based on the 12 principles, purpose, um, what advice would you have for those people?
To start with these 12 principles, it's the foundational. Any person who makes a commitment to begin to understand and practice these 12 principles, just these 12 principles, right?
All right.
That are valid in every room, every area of their lives, personally, professionally, you know, start there, because then that gives us, like, one of the worst things a human being can do. Worst things, worse than smoking crack, drinking alcohol, gambling. Do you know what that would be, Nickie?
What is it?
Lying to themselves.
Yeah.
Denial. Even
Yeah.
denial. Don't even know I am lying. DENIAL. Don't even know I am lying, right?
Right.
That's one of the worst things any human can do to themselves.
Now, I
So,
probably would have said not love themselves, but being dishonest with yourself is a form of not loving yourself.
so to your question, where do I start? Start practicing these principles. Go, go to my website. Get one of these posters. Put them up in the kitchen. Put them up in the bedroom. Put them up in your office, so that we can focus on them, right? And we see them. So that is my goal. Is, one of the purposes or benefits of these principles is, remember, a principle is a law. What does a law do? Creates order. The
Right.
absence of law is disorder. So
Right.
that's what we see in the lives of people, a lot of disorder. So
Right.
the first thing
Right.
we need to do is bring order.
Is get our
Now,
lives in order.
right, once we have order, now we can start to build the house.
Okay. 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 So I would assume you have that same advice for single people. So
Thank you.
now, what about that person who is on their own spiritual journey? They're applying the 12 principles, but they're dealing with a pathological liar. How should that person handle that person they're in connection with, whether it be coworker, romantic, from family? What advice would you have for that person?
Well, again, a combination of the principles. First of all, we don't want to ignore what we see. We want to be honest, right?
Right.
Then we want to have some acceptance of who this person is. This person chooses to be that way. Now I have to, you know, decide, is this going to be the best fit for me? I've got to be honest with myself and say, does this relationship serve me,
Mm-hmm.
or is it a detrimental for me? And then
Okay.
I have to make a decision based on the facts, right, of whether I want to continue to engage in this relationship or not.
Uh-oh, you're gonna have some people mad at you for saying that.
It's true. I mean,
It is true.
and Nickie, you know what? We've had a conversation. We've been talking about an hour now, and is there anything that I share with you that's so deep? No.
No, it's
It's
funny
not.
because I think that we make things a lot more complicated than they really have to be. And I often say this to people that I coach. Really, all it takes is a decision. So you have to decide, okay, I want to do things differently, and I'm going to do them with integrity, with respect, with honor. Um, and basically following the 12 principles. I've never, said all the 12 principles, but some of the words like integrity, respect, those are just basic
Basic.
human good traits of a human.
All these deep philosophies,
Right,
9 times out of 10, they don't work.
right. And we can really keep things simple. Okay, I've decided that I'm going to always be honest. Now, some people think that being honest is
Well, we're
being
gonna
rude.
we're gonna practice. We're gonna practice being honest, because
Right.
sometimes we fall short. We're human, but we
Well,
just
like that. I mean, like just deciding in your mind, okay, this is what I'm going to work on. Are we going to get it right every time?
right.
Probably not. Right.
We made that decision.
But we made that decision. Whereas some people, like you said earlier, some people feel like, oh, well, I'm not going to tell my spouse, whether it be male or female, I'm not going to tell them that because they can't handle it. But like you
Yeah,
said, women can handle a lot. So just say whatever the truth is and let me
yeah.
decide,
And
you know what?
that's a need for a woman. She needs to know that.
Yeah, you need that. And
Yeah.
you know what I often, and I'm going to say it just the way that I say it because it's real. Don't put sugar on my shit. Just give me the shit. I might want salt and pepper today.
Right. There you go. There you go. You
You
know,
know, you don't get to you can't decide for somebody because you don't know how they will react, and they may not react the way that you think they will if you just tell the truth. But I feel like if people don't tell the truth, that kind of makes it worse because now there's a lack of integrity, there's dishonor, it kind of snowballs into something else. And like you said, then you have to decide, do I still want to be in this connection or this relationship
Now, you just
or
said
that
something.
person?
You just said something that I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
So what's the difference between honesty and integrity?
Well, honesty is rooted in the definition of integrity. But basically,
It
integrity
is.
is being honest even when nobody's looking. So if you wouldn't flirt with a guy or a girl when your spouse is not around, that's not something you should do behind their back, unless you just have that type of open communication, like, oh, I saw this guy and I was flirting because he gave me a discount, you know. But if your spouse is not comfortable with that, then of course because I know a couple who they would go into a store, they would go their separate ways, and they would both flirt with the salespeople so that they could get discounts. That was their relationship, and they were okay with it because they knew they were going home together. But if you have
Mhm.
someone who's not comfortable with that, then obviously you can't have that type of relationship. But that's the only reason I brought that particular point up.
But here's my thing. I'm not honest with my mate because of who she is. I'm
Right. You're
I'm
honest because that's the right thing to do, right?
because of who I am, right?
Okay. Okay.
So with my program, you know, there's a difference between honesty and integrity. To your
Okay.
point, to your
Okay.
point, honesty is integrated into integrity. But
Mm-hmm.
honesty is telling the truth. That's just
Okay.
telling the truth.
Okay.
Integrity, you ready for this one? This is another one.
I'm ready.
So integrity is a derivative of the word integrated.
You're right.
Integrity comes from integrated.
You're
Now,
right.
integrated is, you remember how we used to get our cell phone, cable bill, internet bill, and telephone bill on one bill?
Yes.
That's integration. That's taking three pieces and put it into one.
Right.
So integrity means one.
Okay.
It means that my thoughts, my words, and my actions are
Okay.
one.
Okay. Okay.
There's no dichotomy in my being. I'm the
Oh,
same at 2 o'clock in the morning as I am at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
you've been giving us some good points tonight. Okay.
Now, I'm gonna take it one more step, take it a
I'm
little higher.
ready. I'm ready for you. Go ahead.
The number one confession of a Jewish person about God is the Lord thy God is one. The
Okay.
root word for holy is the same word we get integrated. Integrated means holy.
All right. Okay.
So
Okay.
when the Bible says, be ye holy, that ain't about no dress or no chain going in your
Right.
pocket or no title. How many
Right.
people live under that robe? That's all we want.
Okay. Those were great, great, great. This is a great conversation, and I thank you for sharing your time
Yeah,
with us.
thank you.
So we're going to, kind of get ready to wrap things up here in a little bit. But I wanted to ask you, I want to ask you what advice you would give your son or your daughter. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your biological son or daughter, but in terms of the current state of relationships, what advice would you give your son or your daughter? But I think I want to kind of go to, there's a lot of reality TV shows on now, right? Or even social. Um, Looks like we kind of lost. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you froze on me.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, so like shows like 90 Day Fiance or The Bachelor, and the different dating platforms, do you think these are really good ways to establish a covenant with a mate, or is it just kind of fluff?
It's entertainment,
It's
right?
entertainment.
It's entertainment, and people have to recognize and call it what it is. It's entertainment, because at the end of the day, now I don't watch reality shows. I don't have time for that. Let me tell you something. When a person has discovered their purpose, they don't have time
Right,
for foolishness, right?
right,
Um,
right.
all the greats, Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, uh, uh, anybody that has, discovered their purpose or discovered their gift, trained their gift, and serving it
Mhm.
to the world, they don't have time. They focus, and that
Right.
focus, that vision. See, I'm gonna give you another one.
Give it to me.
We were all created for a purpose, right?
Right, right.
That purpose produces a vision. Purpose is the source of vision. Purpose is the reason we were created. Vision is when we see it.
All right.
Vision is our purpose in colors. Now, when we see this vision, it ignites a conviction. I know what I'm supposed to do. There's this problem in the earth, because everybody was created with a gift to solve a problem in their generation. Everybody,
Mhm.
right? So
Right.
now I have this conviction. This conviction attracts people. People see this passion that you have, and now it attracts people. Now you have influence, and that is leadership.
Okay. So basically, what I
So
hear you saying is once you have your purpose, whether male or female, you're now leading. You have disciples. I don't want to like to really use the word followers, but you have disciples now who
yeah,
are looking to you for mentorship or guidance.
that's right. We're all, there's certain people that you can reach that I can't reach. There's people that I can reach that you can't reach. And
Right.
so we have that. See, we've been given a misconception, and I hate to go here, but I got to, Nickie. We've been given
Okay.
this false image of what leadership is. We've
Mm.
developed, we've accepted a perception of leadership that was invented by the Greeks and
Right.
implemented by the Romans. And they said, hey, if a person had, the Greeks were polytheists, they had many gods, and they believed that the
Mhm.
gods chose leaders. And they said if a person had fair skin, a pointed nose, uh, blonde hair, and blue eyes, they were a leader. If a
Right.
person had dark skin, brown eyes, a big nose, and kinky hair, they were meant to be a follower or a slave.
Right.
That is not true. Everybody is a leader. Everybody is a leader. And we got to kick that out the door, right? That's a bad philosophy. It's wrong teaching.
Right.
So when we help people, as you work with your clients and you help people discover who they are, and then they discover their purpose, and that purpose creates a vision, and that vision creates a conviction that produces a passion that begins to influence people. Now everybody's a leader. Now our society works together based on these guiding principles, and it's a healthier, happier, and safer society.
Because we would be self-governing and basically our own. So I had this discussion with someone. Do you think we need leaders,
Everybody,
or do?
everybody's a leader. We're a leader. Okay, so let me ask you this.